Welcome to NBNR, the authority on unfiltered opinions and authentic player insight for Nebraska athletics. Connect with us on Twitter, Instagram, and at NBNRpodcast.com.
We have the saying, no block, no rock.
You know, we just really love Utter. He's a junkyard dog.
Kenny Bell ran up to me and was like, you know what you just did?
You get mad when you going to get in the portal and go to another podcast?
You know, usually dumbbells are in pairs. They had 5 dumbbells.
Got it, Muhammad!
GBR.
God! Beautiful. God, that's good. God, you never fail.
Nope.
Go big red indeed. No block, no rock. There's no comma. Season 3, episode 27. Coming at you.
You know that's so fitting.
Go, why? What?
We have literally a former Hale varsity guy with us right now. So that's just funny that they misspelled our name in the magazine. So that is funny.
Season 3, episode 27. We don't need to linger. Coming at you from the Nebraska Brewing Company tap room in the main lobby, I guess, in front of the taps.
In the pinball machines.
They're all lighting up behind me.
We never recorded in this room until last week, and here we are for the second week in a row.
I like it. I like being that close to the beer.
It is nice.
Yeah.
It's
like where we had
5-foot walk, 10-foot walk, whatever. I'm not good at math.
Well, and it's where we had our most passionate argument to date, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, just
That's not true.
Nah.
The time that Kyle got up and almost left.
I was
about to leave.
Oh,
Yeah,
shit,
I
that's
remember
right.
Kyle standing up and pulling his headset off.
I forgot about that one.
That was season 2, right? Yeah.
I don't know what all
I
that
don't
is.
know.
So, they blur together.
It was before the season. Let's go and talk about what we are each drinking. I looked at the taps and I said, "Is that the Faros? The Faros Irish Red?
Wow.
Give me some of that Faros."
It's back, baby.
The redhead with his full-blown Irish accent.
I looked at the beers and I said, "Give me a Faros. Give me a fucking Faros.
Oh, my God.
Give me a fucking Faros right away. I appreciate you. I love you." How exactly would you, like, if it was on a website, right? And you had the description, how would you describe the Faros?
The same way you just did, right?
Yeah, no, I can't do that accent, but no, it's super malt forward. Really, very nice, easy drinking beer. Again, it is malt forward, so you're not going to get any of that bitterness on it. It's about 5% alcohol, so you can have a few of them.
Yeah.
It is a great beer for the spring. Like, it's just perfect.
St. Patty's Day is around the corner, and
Exactly.
why not enjoy it with an Irish beer?
Yeah,
Pretty good.
it's almost like that was done intentionally.
Weird.
Yeah,
Like the family is Irish or something.
yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Now, Mike, you've also got the Faros, but you're going to talk about something else.
Oh,
Yeah,
Mike-
so I had the Farrells, and I
Yeah.
switched to the Prickleberry, which people who are listening that are like, hey, Nebraska Brewing Company, they don't have a sour beer. Yes, they do, and it's awesome. So come in here, give that a try. That is one of my new go-tos.
It's a prickly pear and raspberry.
Yeah, a lot of flavor.
Oh yeah.
So I am drinking the Taco Veza.
Oh, yeah.
And actually, there is somebody else on the podcast today that's also drinking the Taco Veza because we're also eating tacos again for the second week in a row.
That's right.
But Greg Smith, you are here and you are drinking the Taco Veza.
I definitely am. It is delicious. I do enjoy it. I didn't know that I would be sharing the same beer as you. I would have went like a little bit different just so we could all have something different, but that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay.
It's fine.
The sponsors are pissed.
Yeah. As he's
We
sitting
can have
there.
more variety.
Yeah, I'm right here. Don't worry.
You said you wanted something light, and that's the go-to grade A light beer that NBC provides.
Well, and you're not like the only person that walks in the door and they're like, well, I really like light beer. And we're like, oh, Taco Veza. Every time. Every time someone walks in.
Strong recommendation.
Taco
That is-
Veza.
You guys have built trust.
Yeah.
Yes.
Brandon, this is like the Brandon Riley beer. This is what he gets every time he's in here.
B. Riley special.
That's right. Okay. Now, you had mentioned Greg Smith's name. He is the senior recruiting analyst, recruiting reporter at Inside Nebraska, part of the Rivals Network. Did I describe that correctly?
That is correct. Yeah.
Okay. How do you feel being named that? The senior recruiting analyst. How does that feel? Does that roll off the tongue or what?
It does. It does. I feel important. I can't lie. No, it feels good. Like it's befitting, right? Like it feels. So many people always ask me, like, what does that actually mean? And I just say it means I do a lot of recruiting stuff. Like it really doesn't mean anything different versus if I was just the recruiting analyst. I can say and lie and say that I'm in charge of more people. There's like one. But that counts.
That's
that counts.
more.
Yeah, that is more than just having me. So yeah, it definitely feels important.
You're in charge of the junior recruiting analyst.
Right.
Whoever that is.
In charge of the intern. There you go.
All right. Well, so the 2023 class for Nebraska football has wrapped up. According to Rivals, they were ranked the 24th class. Yep. Just looking at the first year guys, not transfers just yet, but the freshmen that Matt Rule and company have recruited, is there a first year impact guy, a true freshman that stands out that you think could make an immediate impact?
Man, the first name, I'll go with the first name that came to mind when he said that, and that's linebacker Eric Fields out of Oklahoma. Really neat story of kind of how that all came together as a guy who was very under-recruited throughout this process. And I still, for the life of me, can't really figure out why. Like, I spoke with his high school coach down in Ardmore, Oklahoma about this, and he said, his words, that no one ever stops there, and so that's why he was under-recruited. I don't know if that's actually true or not. I can't verify it, but I will go with what coach says. And so he's a kid that's really fast. He had a really good 200-meter dash, really good 60-meter dash or 60-yard dash as well. Was a tackling machine down in Oklahoma, and I think he's a guy that can come in. I hate to even bring this name up this early in the podcast because it's hard feelings at this point, but Ernest Hausman and could come in and maybe play like he did early on. But the difference here is because of the change in defense, we don't know whether or not that Eric Fields is going to be kind of an inside linebacker at that second level in the 3-3-5 under Tony White, or if he's going to be whatever they call the rover position, that middle guy in the 5 on the back end. I am personally angling for them to call that something cool. Like, we need that, like Bones, or it can't be the Husker. Like, it can't, it needs to be like the Herbie, like something like
Bones.
I
can just see it now. This is going to be so left field, but it's the boner.
No, I blocked you right into that.
Yeah, you did.
Didn't Bo have a name for that? It was like Eric Haig ran
Peso?
it. Was it Peso? Yeah, I remember Bo had a name
schools
for it.
have different, like New Mexico State or New Mexico, it's the Aztec because it's that they have a cool sounding mascot, so it gets to roll like that. I just don't know. I don't know if they're going to be able to do that here. We'll see.
When
I'm
hoping so. When people say Husker, all I can picture is the fat blonde farmer.
Yeah,
and I don't want him being my Peso or my Aztec or my Husker.
It's so much cooler if it was Aztec. Like, it really is. Like, so they just will probably have to leave it at Rover unless somebody on staff is really creative and figures out a way to go with it that way.
Yeah, Husker is not the most intimidating thing.
No. And you mentioned Eric Fields, and he came up a few weeks ago, and we were just talking about how Matt Rule, and I know he was asked this question during his presser, but he sounded like he wanted to talk about Eric Fields. Like that was almost his kind of personal project was Eric Fields. And you look back, and for me, it was like CTB. When he was recruited, like, he was a underrated guy, and Scott Fuck really made it a point to like mention him in the press conference because he's an athletic dude. We don't know exactly like where we're going to put him, but the potential, and you can see it now. Starting in the NFL and making an impact. That's where we give credit to old Scott. But that's just who Eric Fields reminds me of, is the CTB of his first recruiting class. So,
which is interesting because that I will say the previous regime.
There we go.
I've learned quickly. Was really outside of Cam Jurgens, was really like their biggest like kind of development win. Right? You just hope that there would have been more of them. So hopefully Eric Fields gets that ball rolling for Matt Rule, and then it kind of goes from there. And I do agree with you totally. Like, he wanted to bring him up. He was actually the only guy, if you go back and look at that December press conference, he was the only guy Matt Rule called by name.
Yes.
Like, Malachi didn't get a name drop. Like, Eric Fields was the only one that got name dropped, which is generally a good sign. Like, the staff is very, very high on him.
Yeah. Something that we talk about a lot on this podcast is special teams. Yep. And so I want to talk about this kicker that we just got from Westside. And the reason I want to talk about it is because I got to thinking the other day, I was like, what have we been missing, right? You get to the 35-yard line, the 40-yard line, and it seems like we don't have it. It never comes across as like this is a point possibility. You get to just outside like 30, 40 yards to 50 yards, and you're like, yeah, we're going to be punting here. And it's like there's no possibility for points. So I just want to kind of hear your opinion on this kicker. Alvano, right?
Yeah, Tristan Alvano from Omaha West Side. I have a great opinion of Tristan Alvano. When we were asked on kind of on our insiders board about, who are your like 3 favorite recruits or your 3 that you think are going to make an impact. And anytime I'm ever asked about that, I include Tristan Alvano. And part of the reason is it sounds like it's kind of a cool thing to say. It's like, oh, it's off the wall, it's wacky, it's the kicker.
It's a kicker.
But I think he's going to start right away, right? And as a kicker will provide you a lot of points over his career if he ends up being a good one, especially when you're bringing him in as a scholarship guy for his freshman year and not making him wait at all for that. You would think that he's going to come in and play right away. So he's a kid that has already proven that he can make big-time kicks. He made it to win the state championship for Westside. He was very accurate otherwise throughout his career. He has a big leg as well. And it's just kind of when a guy is that clutch that early on, you just feel like you can trot him out there. Like you said, once you get to a certain spot, hopefully that's just points. And as we've seen in recent years, that can be a problem, right? And those points then add up to where if you miss a couple of those kicks, that'll lose you the game. I think that he's going to be good.
All those one possession games, all those losses, all those close losses,
almost wins, right?
Yeah. The current kicker on the roster, Timmy Bleekrode, look, it's not like he did terrible, right? I mean, he was 9 of 12 on field goals. The only extra point that he missed was blocked. But it's like you said, as soon as they hit that 35, it's like, dang, they better like get to the 20 or 15 to even feel like this kick is good.
Guaranteed.
It's not like you can trot Bleekrode out there for a 45 to 50 yarder.
No, that wasn't his thing. And part of that, what part of the other issue is too, is that it feels like, and God, it could not have possibly been this way, but it feels like every week Nebraska played somebody that had an All-American kicker. It couldn't have been that because they can't all be All-Americans, but it felt like everyone else had one except for Nebraska, even though, like you said, Bleekrode was fine. He just wasn't some of those other guys that you see around, especially just around the conference. It seems like kicking around the conference is always really good.
Well, and even Bleekrode was similar to like Connor Culp the year prior, where it's like, yeah, he only missed 3, but it's the ones that he missed were so important. They cost you games. And that's why I felt like when the year Connor Culp won Big Ten Kick of the Year, I thought about the ones that he missed. And he only missed like 2 or 3 that season. But like those 2 or 3 were the games that cost us, and we could have probably won 5 games that year instead of 3. So to me, I hope that this guy has his head on straight. I mean, West Side kid, just came off winning a state championship, so that would be ideal.
So to Timmy's defense, you say you can't trot him out for a 45 to 50 yarder.
Was I wrong?
Over 40 yards, he was 2 for 3. Where he was the least consistent was the 30 to 39 yarders, which realistically should be chip shots.
The gimmies.
Yeah. And even at that, I mean, he was 2 for 4, but I mean, that's a distance that you would kind of expect. He was 2 for 2 from 40 to 49. You would expect if you can hit those, you should be hitting those 30 to 39.
Well, yeah, I mean, but to the point,
exactly.
It is once you get down there, you're like,
it's still
we're going
iffy.
for it.
Yeah, it's iffy.
It changes the way that you call plays too, right? Like if you've got that in the back of your mind, you're like, okay, maybe we need to put the ball in harm's way. Oh, and then here comes the turnover. Like it kind of lends itself to that as well. Whether then if you feel like you've got a guy that can make it, maybe you get a little bit more conservative. You know you're going to get those points, and then we go live to fight another day.
Yep.
Yeah, and maybe you'd agree with this, but there's like something mentally about a kicker, right? When it's a closer kick, there's more pressure because, God, if I miss, then, I suck. But if I kick a 45 to 50 yarder, but I miss it, it's like, well, it's not like I was supposed to really make this, so there's really no pressure. So maybe there's something to that. I don't know. I'm not a kicker. So
if you knew anything about my golf game, you'd know that my short game struggles because I'm afraid I'm going to just blast it and miss and,
Right.
Blade Central.
One of the dumbest stats I always love to track, and I wish I could see this for Timmy for this last season, is which hash they kicked from. Like, I want to see which side of the field they kicked from. Because I've noticed that for a right-footed kicker, the right side of the field, just dead on. They're always great from the right side of the field, but if you go to the left, that they either get in their head or
you got to push it.
Yeah, you got to push it over, and it becomes incredibly harder.
Yeah.
So enough about kickers. now kickers are very important. Yeah, mind you, but linemen, we know about the Arizona State transfer, Ben Scott.
Yep.
I think we would expect him to be a starter. I think that's pretty safe. Like, you got to earn the job. Well, he's got it. Okay. Let's just talk about the 4 incoming freshmen. So you got Gunnar, Gatula, Sam Sledge, Brock Knutson, and Mason Goldman, all from Nebraska, by the way.
Shout out.
Like if we did like a 2-year time lapse of them going through the rural development boot camp, like who of those guys is the one that fans should really know and is going to make an impact eventually? Because we know that linemen take a little longer, but who's that guy that emerges that fans should know about?
Sam Sledge is my pick for that one. And if you've been reading what I've written over like the last year, going back to last summer, when I went out to Creighton Prep and saw him in a practice, like I just love Sam Sledge. Like I love, he's an old school kid. He's tough. He has that mean streak to him that I like to see in offensive lineman, but he's also very athletic. Like spent time as their punter. He can do other stuff. Like he at that point was going to be a center. I don't assume that has changed, even though the coaching staff, like the head coach, has changed. Offensive line coach did not change, so hopefully that then stayed the same. And he was actually really looking forward to being a center at Nebraska. Like that was something that, as you guys know, has been a pain point around here for a long time, right? No, you never heard that. And so having Sledge be excited for that, I thought that was pretty cool. Like he hadn't obviously played that. When you're the best offensive lineman in high school, you're always playing tackle. Like it's very rare that you're not playing tackle. And so he said, he's looking forward to moving into that role. And I think that he'll do very well there. This ties in though with Ben Scott and him being locked into that job, what I assume as well. I think most people do. And so he can learn behind Ben Scott, a guy who has already been in college for a couple of years and has kind of been through Power 5 program and all of that. You have a mentor, and then you can kind of take over. I think a couple of years from now, Sam Sledge is the guy for me out of that group that I would highlight the most.
And, of course, that last name, too, Sledge.
Great offensive lineman name.
I was just going to ask, like, do we trademark Sledgehammer right now?
Boom. Got it. Okay, and the next thing I want to ask you before we go on to 2024, we're seeing Rhule's philosophy at play, right? He emphasizes speed, track speed. What makes the Rhule philosophy different, hopefully better, than the previous regime, which seemed to have similar tendencies to target fast guys?
Well, and like big, long guys. Like that was like their thing too, is like huge players, very tall players.
So on the second part of that is interesting to me too, because the targeting like the huge long players, it felt like to me that it was more of we're very concerned about measurables and we want the team to look awesome. We'll see if they can actually play.
The all bus team, right?
The all bus team. And then this is where it all kind of ends up playing together, because you see it every year. Like I think it's Athlon Sports that does like the anonymous coach deal where they all kind of come out. And what are they said for years. That's what Nebraska was, that they would get off the bus, they'd look awesome, and then you kind of get out there and you're pushing them around a little bit. You want that to end, number one, obviously. Yes. But where I think the philosophies kind of like they definitely differ is that this is where it comes into play that Matt Rhule and a lot of the coaches on his staff have been there, done that with this, right? So if you ask those guys, they have all sorts of examples that they can rattle off to you of guys that they either, we talk about the track speed, guys that played football and ran track at Baylor for them, did similar things at Temple, guys that they then had no situations and they turned into NFL players, guys that, were really raw athletes and they turned them into all conference receivers. Like them having an actual clear picture of what that needs to look like at the end of it will help them in the beginning when they're then identifying to try and develop those players. Like that to me is the huge difference in this, is that experience level, especially from Matt Rhule, but also from a lot of the other guys on the staff that have been with him, I think will be a major difference that you'll see pretty early.
And I think a significant position of this, you can talk about deep defensive backs, you need fast defensive backs, but they signed, I think it was 6 true freshman wide receivers. So is there like a wide receiver of that group that you think is going to be that next, I forget the dude's name that Matt Rhule keeps mentioning, the Temple to NFL.
Petrie, or it may be a different guy. I can't think of the guy's name.
I forget, but
it's
well,
tough.
Hassan Reddick is brought
Hassan
up.
Reddick.
Okay.
We all know Hassan Reddick.
Everybody should know Hassan Reddick because
at this point
he plays on Sunday.
Yeah, he does. He was out there last week. It is tough to not say Malachi Coleman, because if you look at he is the perfect recruit for those guys, where he's a kid that is all about relationships off the field. Like he's a great kid off of the field. All of his NIL stuff kind of going to charity and all of that to help foster kids. But then on the field, his combination of size and speed but still being kind of raw as a football player, like as highly rated as he was, there's a long way to go for him in terms of development of being a wide receiver. So I definitely think him, but the guy that I always like to mention is Jaden Doss. Like, I think that Jaden Doss, Nebraska got a steal in Jaden Doss out of Kansas City. And he's an interesting case because he was, of all the receivers that were already committed to Nebraska, like kind of during that transition, he did not decommit. He didn't really, he got other calls and offers, but he didn't really look around much, right? And if you remember on signing day, he's kind of in the living room with the big smile, said I was always solid. And I think that is something that the staff definitely took notice of and really appreciates, because you've got to get as many of those as you can when you got so much going on. But outside of that, I think he's a terrific football player. He's a kid that can help you on the return game, can take jet sweeps, can play outside. Like, I really like Jaden Doss down the road as well.
Well, and it's kind of weird in this era of non-committables and transfers and all this stuff, and you got a guy that seemed like he actually committed to the university.
Right.
It didn't matter who the coach was; he committed to the university, which you just don't see anymore. So, that's the type of guy that you want to root for, especially, especially not even like a local kid either. So,
Is this story? And I know this is kind of like we talked about this earlier, and this is coming out of nowhere a little bit. Is it true that Kirby Smart flew a helicopter to a high school?
That is true.
Okay,
that is true.
Are you willing to? Do you know anything about that, or like?
No, I know
who
that
was
it
he
happened.
seeing?
Yeah, it was a kid in New York, I want to say. So I'm not sure who it was. But yes, that did happen, and it had to have been a cool moment for the kid. I don't know.
Way to
who it
make
was.
an entrance.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Can you you walk
get to
around?
the chopper.
Kirby Smart flies in on a chopper. You walk around for the next week just swinging dick. What's up? Kirby Smart flew here and landed right over
And
there
it was
for
like
me.
it was the week after the national championship, too,
Yeah.
wasn't it? Like,
That's so
it's
sick.
like the ultimate boss move.
Yeah, right.
So is Kirby a little looking over his shoulder? Where's Matt? Where's Coach Rule at? Is it kind of like that? Like, what's going on
In
here?
those situations, I would love to at some point do a story on that, about like what it's like when those guys go to those schools. So like he wasn't, because I want to say that same day that Saban was at that school. So whoever is there is like a really big deal.
Big
obviously.
time.
Is a big time player. But I would love to know like what happens, because you see the photos sometime. There was a photo of Lane Kiffin at the same spot as Kirby Smart this recruiting cycle as well. Like, I know it happens. There's always that overlap. There's only so many days that they can go out. So I would love to know about those awkward stories about like what they're talking about when they're waiting in the hallway, or what happens there, like who doesn't like who. Like, I would love to know about that.
Like, they're not standing on the sideline going, I really like his size. Yeah. Oh yeah. He's great. Yeah.
So obviously the helicopter entrance is like a big deal. We're sitting here talking about it.
Yep.
Hear me out. Nebraska gets a blimp and we just fly it in circles around a high school.
No. A spy balloon.
Oh, no.
We just can't get a shot down.
I want to avoid that.
Yeah, good luck. You're the king of spy balloon, isn't it? TikTok,
God,
right?
you stop that.
Isn't that the same thing? Oh, anyway.
Nebraska has little red balloons that we release for every recruit.
So that's where all our red balloons
That's where all the red balloons went.
Yeah, we're just trying to get recruits.
Damn it.
That's awesome. Wouldn't that be amazing if Matt Rule brings back the balloons, but to spy on others? Not even for the games, just to spy on others.
No, I want to know their plays.
Yeah.
The balloons fly over and we know their whole playbook. That'd
You
be
walk into the stadium, they hand you a mini satellite. I'm like, here you go.
Sweet.
And let this bitch go.
Like, here's this drone for you to fly around.
That's awesome.
No drones anymore. Kyle found that out.
Oh, shit. Yeah. You almost got your shot down too, or what?
No, you just like the University of Nebraska. You just can't you can't fly around.
No,
over
it
there.
is like a no-fly.
Yeah.
Like,
No fly zone.
Well,
Will they shoot it down?
Well, I was flying during a wedding one time, like in Fremont, and it was Nebraska versus Ohio State at the same time. And I was flying down a dirt road, following this convertible with like the bride and the girls in it and stuff.
Sure.
And this big message popped up and was like, "This is a no-fly zone." And then I couldn't see anything, crashed it straight into the dirt.
No.
Yeah, shut me down completely. Yeah,
Hey, you were in Fremont?
yeah.
Jesus.
Big thing popped up
How
and
long
said,
ago was it?
this would have been 2 years ago.
I blame Scott.
It was like the wildest thing. Yeah. But it popped up. It said no fly zone, like event Nebraska or NU versus what is it? OSU? Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. Crazy.
Whoa.
And it just crashed your drone?
I mean, it was my fault because I couldn't see anything and I was still flying. So it drove straight into the dirt.
Now the truth comes out.
anyway.
Okay,
Yeah.
there we go. We needed the full story. That's
It's amazing. Holy shit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
It's crazy.
Big Brother is watching, no matter. Even in Fremont.
Did that make you want to fight Ryan Day?
I went swinging. Yeah.
You know,
Just got a fat head of him, just punched holes in your wall.
You know what? This kind of brings me back to that topic we had like earlier in the season. Greg,
okay.
who is the one head coach? Okay, we'll start with this. Who has the most punchable face in the Big Ten, football coaches wise?
Like, make sure I don't miss anybody because I had a name right away. PJ Fleck.
Yes, my man. Woo!
That was a unanimous answer for us.
Who would win in a fight? Former head coach Scott or Jim Harbaugh?
Oh, man, the problem with Harbaugh is he's got that real crazy streak. Man.
That's all he said.
That's the thing is that he doesn't seem like somebody that gives up easily. Like, to end the fight, he has to be ended. Like, it has to like,
You're going to have to put him down.
Are you sure you don't listen to us every week?
I have to go with Harbaugh.
Oh, that was good.
Harbaugh strikes me as. Oh, shit. I shouldn't say this. Harbaugh strikes me as World War II era Japanese. They don't give up without a fight. So you just got to drop the bomb on them.
Oh, God. Jesus Christ.
What the fuck?
Jesus Christ.
Wow. All right.
As 2023 wraps up.
Oh, my
Up. It's
God.
February. It's early
Well,
February.
no, I'm saying the class. I mean, I'm sorry. The class.
Oh, my God.
Let's go to 2024. The Holy Grail, great. I don't even need to say the name.
Ask about.
Yeah.
No, I'm not. Let's talk about Dylan Raiola's recruitment.
Oh, shocked.
Looks like he's going to commit sometime soon, maybe within the next 2 months. Maybe looks like it's USC, Ohio. Or wow, no, not
Wrong.
not them.
Wrong.
USC, Georgia, Nebraska. Talk about his recruitment. I know it's a very vague. Just talk about it.
Just talk about it. So I will start with the fun part of this. So
fun.
Because you'll ask, like, what are the chances, right? I will say that the chances are no longer zero. They were zero under Scott.
I want to point out, he even paused and pointed to the boom.
But now I think that there's a solid chance. I think that what's really like fascinating to me about this recruitment is that the Matt Rule effect that has happened really, really fast, right? And it had to happen fast based off of how many schools and the caliber of schools that are after Dylan. Nebraska has done everything that they can to scratch and claw and get back into this recruitment. And to do that, though, they had to really impress not just Dylan, but they've got to get Mom. They've obviously got to get Dom. They had to figure out the weird situation with Donovan as well, with being retained. That's not the main reason.
But you feel like it's part of it, right?
It helps, right?
Yeah.
Like it's an easier sell to go into the living room without having just fired his uncle. It just makes sense.
It is what it is.
Yeah, Nebraska also, they went out there as much as possible as the rules allowed during the contact period here in January last month. All of that apparently has gone very, very well, which all kind of culminated in Nebraska sending every assistant coach and pulling them off the road on that final day of the contact period and sending them to his high school. Nebraska would not have done that if they were not in the race, right? Like, I think that that's, safe to say. Now, the problem, though, on the other side of that is that Dylan could literally walk up to a map, pick a school, and they're going to take him. Like, there's no, when you're that level, like, not only are you the number one quarterback, you're the number one player in the 2024 class from all services. There is no debate. It can be really tricky. So you've got to fight all the way through. But Nebraska has some real advantages in its back pocket, right? With the legacy of his dad, with his uncle being here, with kind of the family aspect that I think that Coach Rule really pushes as part of their recruiting strategy. I think that that's super important and has really helped as well. But it's definitely going to be tough. I do think that it's going to be between Nebraska, Georgia, and USC. And it's hard to turn down both Georgia or USC.
Right.
Like, on one hand, you have a team that is just ready-made to continue to roll off championships in Georgia. but their problem kind of is the offense is just not as fun, right? It is really similar to what was happening at Alabama, where yes, they're putting up points in yards, but man, it doesn't look like a lot of fun, except for the winning. The winning, I mean,
winning's
except
fun.
for that, right?
Yeah.
USC with Lincoln Riley, which it's interesting that they had to get back into the race as well, because they were on the outside looking in prior to him committing to Ohio State that original time, because things just didn't mesh with Lincoln Riley behind the scenes with the family. But they're back in it because Lincoln Riley can say, hey, I'm the premier quarterback developer in the country. All my guys do is win Heisman's. Oh, and by the way, you can be out here in LA. But Nebraska, again, I think Nebraska kind of has the heartstrings, right? Like it's good. I think it'll be a head versus heart type of situation as it stands right now, where maybe your head says go to Georgia, but your heart is saying, oh, I can do this thing at Nebraska. It's just going to be hard for Matt Rule to sell someone of his caliber on taking a leap of faith because he doesn't have to. But they still have a shot.
So with Nebraska, obviously, it's easy to sell Dylan on saying, you come here, you're going to be a 4-year guy. Like this is your job. But do you think Georgia set a dangerous precedent by saying, if you come to Georgia, like with Stetson Bennett, you can play quarterback for 15 years?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Maybe they did.
So let me ask you this. I know that his recruitment with Ohio State, they promised that they wouldn't take a guy in the previous class. Nebraska obviously did not take a quarterback in 2023, at least high school wise.
Yeah.
I mean, do you think there was a reason for that, or do you think it was just because Rule got in late? And
No, I think it's because they got in late.
Okay.
I think Rule liked the guy that Ohio State ended up getting.
Oh, yeah.
Scott messed that up completely. That one, sorry, I'm going on a tangent here.
That's
because
okay.
we're on the quarterback situation. I think that it's like incredibly ridiculous that Nebraska had multiple 4-star quarterbacks within driving distance of campus. And not only did they get none of them, they weren't even really in it, right? So Zane Flores, they basically ignored. Avery Johnson down in Kansas, Bill Bush tried to get them in that to his credit and had him kind of in the mix for a little bit, but he ended up at Kansas State and it didn't work out. Lincoln Kai Holtz, the guy that ended up at Ohio State, who was just setting all sorts of records out in South Dakota. And then J.J. Cole, who ended up at Iowa State, who Michigan tried to make a late run at him. He ended up as a solid 4-star as well. Like they just did so poorly. And these guys were all driving distance. 4 different guys from Nebraska's campus. All because, and no disrespect to William Pop Watson, because Mark Whipple really liked him from an early age, even though if you just look, it was going to be hard for William Watson to end up being successful in the Big Ten. He's listed at 5'10". If you are listed at 5'10", and I stood next to him, so I know he's not 5'10". It was just going to be hard. Like that was just going to be a tough situation. So what happened with quarterback? I'll never get over that because I don't know that you're ever going to see that. Are you ever going to see that many really, really talented quarterbacks? They didn't go to Meatloaf State. They went to all really good schools.
Power 5 schools.
Power 5 schools that are doing very well, right? It'll be hard to replicate that again.
And I just can't get over the fact that Adrian Martinez was not more successful in Nebraska. You look at for what he had and for how everything played out, we've said it, when he left, we're like, we're all like bitching and moaning about it. But for the longest time, we've always said like we have so much respect for Adrian Martinez. But just looking at how that whole thing progressed and how they couldn't put like a football team around him for him to really succeed, man, it grinds my gears.
All the quarterback issues that we had in the last 5 years, 4 and some change. It's just wild to me.
Well, and so we talked about this before the episode started. I actually don't remember exactly what the topic of the conversation was, but we were talking about, different rooms on, where we actually it was if you could bring back any player in Nebraska history on offense and defense.
We should go around the table.
Yeah, we can do that. So I guess I'll pose the question.
Can we take just a quick break and we'll just redo that?
Do it after the break.
Let's take a quick little break.
Cash rules everything around me. Green, get the money. Dollar bill, yo.
We have the saying, no block, no rock.
Thanks, Troy.
All right, so coming back for break.
Troy Walters. Poor guy.
Dude, we need Troy Walters on this podcast so bad. We literally named the podcast after his freaking motto.
Yeah.
We need him on.
Yeah.
He better come on.
And he's making moves too. Like he's
interviewing for
just
jobs.
saying, man.
Troy, if you listen to this basement podcast, get on here.
Yeah.
We need you.
We need
I'm in the basement.
Yes, this is the largest basement in the state of Nebraska, actually.
Yeah.
Anyways.
All right.
Connor, you were going to say something.
Yeah. So after just before we got into break, we were getting into one of my favorite rhetoricals that I have found recently. And we're going to start to my left with Greg here.
Okay.
If you had a chance to bring back one player on both the offensive and defensive side, any Husker ever, for this current team, who would you bring back?
Okay, so I've thought long and hard about this.
All right.
And hopefully one of these, at least, is something that no one else will say.
Okay.
Will Shields is going to be my guy on the offense. Okay, so I thought I was being original out here.
No, he's on his name's on the wall.
Well, there's a bunch of dudes on the wall. There's other people to choose from.
We're good. I got another one. You're good.
Okay, all right, that's fine.
There's a lot of good
I should have
ones.
went with my backup choice then. But no, you put a killer offensive lineman in on this team with someone that you know that can do their job. As of right this second, that's few and far between on the offensive line, but there's time. So I would definitely go with him on offense. On defense, the first guy for me, because I think he'd be really fun to see in this defense under Tony White, would be Levante David.
Okay.
Now, he's a safe answer. Like, you can put him in any defense, but in this particular defense, I think it'd be really fun. Like, I'm really excited, spoiler alert, about what happens with this defense and how exciting it can be. I think that could end up being a real weapon for Nebraska down the road with the types of athletes that you can put inside of a 3-3-5, provided they get the defensive line thing figured out. But yeah, Levante David, Will Shields, those are my two picks.
All right, Kyle, we'll go to you next.
No, you won't.
No, you won't? Okay, I'll go to me next, bitches.
Oh, boy.
Yes. All right, my offensive pick, and I have a couple of ways to play with this, okay? Offensively, I would bring back Dominic Raiola. Okay?
Okay.
For a couple of reasons. One, I mean, like, why would you want to play for your brother? That's kind of funny.
Do you think that's another recruiting
yeah,
tool?
it's another recruiting tool. Three,
We're going all in on
his name is on the freaking wall. He was a dominant offensive lineman. And gosh, Dominic offensive lineman, yes. And gosh, we need help there. So I would say that for the O-line, and I'm going to be a basic bitch, and I'm going to say Ndamukong Suh would obviously be my number one defensive guy to bring back because, gosh, if you look at that current roster, defensive lineman, and plus, I mean, he's probably one of the best defensive tackles to ever play the sport. So why not bring back a guy that probably should have won a Heisman? Yeah. Jared, what do you got?
Well, offensive lineman, look, Will Shields, hey, even though he's a Chief, he's still really good. If I'm being consistent, on both sides, I'm going to go with line, offensive line. I'm going to...
Incognito.
I figure, I don't know. I just know Jared.
As long as there are no funerals around here.
Richie Incognito on the offensive line.
Shocking.
I kind of say that to joke, but I wouldn't be against bringing Richie Incognito back in the fold.
The nastiness would be back for sure.
Hey, the man's an absolute.
You thought Sam Sledge was nasty. All right, I'm just saying. Well, look, or are we bringing the fullback back or not, Marcus Satterfield? Are we doing Makovica?
God, that's what I was going to say.
No. You can do the Makovica. I still stick with the O-line because I got to be consistent. On defense, what? Scott Shanley, of course. No, I'm sorry. No.
Is he allowed it?
No. Scott Shanley referred to our podcast as a basement podcast. That's why we record in the largest basement in the state of Nebraska.
Wait, did that happen?
Yes, for real.
He blocked me on Twitter because I called him out.
Yeah.
I think he blocked Mike too.
No, he didn't block me, but he blocked our podcast account.
Hold on. Have any of you been personally blocked by Scott? Except me?
Just you.
Just me?
Yeah.
I didn't even say anything mean.
There's just something about you.
Mine was just a picture.
He probably saw your mustache.
Yeah,
but then again, Scott Shanley has poor opinions anyway, so who gives a fuck?
Fuck him.
Anyway, on defense, this isn't my pick, but I want to shine light on this guy because I feel like he's still overlooked to this day. Broderick Thomas, the Sandman. I feel like
that's
he
a
is.
good pick.
Are you serious?
I swear to you.
Stop.
I swear to you.
Okay, that's not my pick again.
It's not my pick again. Don't shine light on him.
Kyle is over there just furiously Googling now. I'm like, fuck.
I just pulled up like a top 50 list. Like, just give me some ideas.
Somebody that you're gonna forget.
Yeah.
Okay, well, in that case, then I'll go with a throwback. Give me a Rich Glover then. Give me another defensive tackle who was dominant in his time and period, right? You can't compare current players to past players and vice versa because it doesn't work that way. Give me a Rich Glover in his prime, You said Sue. I'll take a Rich Glover.
Okay, so I'm going to go with the throwback as well. For my offense, taking Dave Remington.
Okay.
Love that.
Oh, surprised he's still on the board. Okay.
Yeah.
Actually.
I mean, he's got like an award, I think,
Trophy
after
named
him.
after him or something.
Yeah.
But they have Ben Scott. That's fine.
So for my defensive pick, I'm going to go for a stretch here.
Oh, boy.
Carl Pliny. No, I'm taking Sue. Like, Sue's the easiest answer for me in the world. But yeah, Remington and Sue, those are my two picks.
Yeah. Well, you guys already heard Jared say it. I was like screaming on the inside over here. I was going to say the Sandman and Joel Makovica just because we're talking about the fullback coming back. And yeah.
I thought you were going to say Dane Todd.
No. Nope. Yep.
Andy Janovich, come on now.
Okay, so I thought that might be a little too recent. So
But does it say? But does it say something? And I'm sure the answer is yes. That everyone picked like offensive, defensive lineman, and then a front seven player.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, so do you? So what is?
Wait,
it?
do you
This
think
is-
I'm not front seven?
No. So this is me turning it back on you guys. So I'm always interested in this. Like, what is you guys' level of confidence in Matt Rule, and basically everyone that we've talked to has talked about like winning the line of scrimmage and being tough in the trenches. What is the level of confidence for you guys that's going to happen and will remain a focus?
Let me take
because
a
they've
stab.
talked about it a lot. It has come up a lot.
Okay. The way I want to answer that question is kind of in two parts.
Okay.
Matt Rule said, it might take time, and it might not be easy, but it will be done. With that being said, he knows it's going to take time, and it takes time to build the trenches, especially in the Big Ten. And the former regime knows that because they skipped out on that a little bit. Okay. So to me, that's my focus, is that I just think it's going to take more time. They didn't get that guy at defensive tackle. I think we're going to have problems in the middle part of our defensive line. And our O-line, when you still got 54 playing at right tackle, I'm sorry. Like, to me, I don't think it's going to work. I think he comes back to that big body guy,
looks
all
great.
bust,
Yeah.
looks great type guy. I mean, I have a lady that sits next to me in the stadium, and she is like, her nephew played on the same team as 54 in high school. And she told me, and I was pumped when he signed at Nebraska. I was like, oh my gosh, we just got a top 150 player. He's a 4-star kid.
A lot of people wanted him.
Yeah, everybody wanted him, right?
Sure, yeah.
Right? I'm like, this is awesome, right? She said, I promise you right now, he is going to be a bust. And I'm like,
Jesus.
come on now. This lady's in her 70s.
Come on, Dorothy.
She's seen enough.
Whatever her name is.
I mean,
Dorothy Lynch.
Let's call her for the sake of the pod. Call her-
Dorothy Lynch.
her name is Marcy.
Oh, Jesus. We didn't need that.
Yes.
What's her
Yeah.
address?
I don't know her address. She lives in
Stop it.
Beatrice.
okay, here we go.
Stop it.
Anyways,
Maybe on 7.
she's amazing.
Social Security is
She's
50.
amazing. But with that being said, I'm just telling you right now, like, she told me this guy is not going to work at Nebraska, and it hasn't worked out. To me, I'm worried about the tackle position on both, on the offensive side of the ball. I don't think it's a quick fix. Even that Georgia guy, he needs some time.
He needs time. Yeah.
He needs some time. And who's going to play tackle? Who's going to protect the quarterbacks? That's my jab at it.
So I think my opinion on it is Matt Rule, like you just said, says it takes time, right? And something that we have a lot of former offensive linemen on this show.
Oh, yeah.
And they say, like, if you were to put me on the offensive line my freshman year, he's like, most of them say, like, I would have been killed.
Well, Utter was fat and out of shape, and yeah,
right. Like they all just say, like,
We love you, Dylan.
It takes so long for you to get like game ready as an offensive lineman, and so if Matt Rule can put together a plan to strategically like make sure that these guys are being built up throughout their career, and you don't have to just throw them out there as freshmen just because you don't have any other options.
like Teddy.
Yeah, like if you can come up with a strategic plan, like hopefully we see that. But my opinion on it is, like, if that happens, it will be successful. If it doesn't happen, I don't think you see much difference.
Okay.
Greg, you asked what gives us the confidence in Matt Rule. Well, you look at his experience as a coach. Like, he has a lot of offensive line, defensive line experience, places that he's gone. I think the fact that he's played in the Big Ten, we hope that means something. It might not mean jack squat, and hopefully it does. Walk on at Penn State, he realizes the kind of play that the Big Ten requires to be successful in it. And this is going to be an answer different from you guys. A lot of it is a little bit blind faith, right? Like we want to be confident in Matt Rule. If we're being honest with each other, a lot of Husker fans, when Matt Rule was announced, it was like, coming off the Panthers thing, poverty Panthers, we've been over it. I think a lot of people were kind of like, I don't know. But then he gets up there, his very first media appearance, and you're telling me that people didn't fall in love with the guy.
He
of
changed
course
a lot
they
of
did.
minds that
Oh,
day.
yeah.
He said a lot of good things. And then, of
good
course, you got Marcus Satterfield a couple weeks later going up there and talking about the fullback and talking about how we're going to be physical. And it's a streamlined conversation with
they're
all these.
on the same page.
They're all on the same page. And Kyle brought that up last week. So
Great point, Kyle.
Thank you.
good job, buddy. Yeah. Good point a week ago. Yeah. So, yeah, it's a little bit of, hey, we got to put faith in this guy because he hasn't coached a game yet, but he said all the right things. He's got nice experience to fall back on. Can we just fucking do this thing, please? And it's just been too long.
Yeah.
You know?
But
which is what makes it tough, to you guys' point about that it's going to take time in the trenches, because it really does.
It does.
Like and I'd say this like in recruiting, I say this all the time, like offensive and defensive line are the hardest positions for freshmen to come in and play right away. Mm-hmm. And that is, it's anecdotal. I've seen it. Coaches have actually said that. Like, it's just really difficult to do because you go from being a 17-year-old kid that's playing against high school competition and you're bigger than everyone to playing against grown men. Where even the worst teams in the Big Ten have solid offensive lines or solid defensive lines, and you don't really realize that until you get into it, and then you see that different level of competition. So it just takes time to build up, but people don't want to wait.
Right.
That's the
Yeah.
only thing.
Especially Nebraska.
I mean,
because it's been so long, and I understand that. I get it.
But this team, it's still not really a talent thing. It was retention development type of thing under the previous regime. Mental too. Like they don't know what winning looks like. Winning is contagious. They haven't won.
But that's why I wonder, and I'm not saying that they're going to like be awesome this year, but that's what makes me wonder that they can be okay or pretty good.
Yeah.
Like they can show progress. You know, Rule said something interesting the other day about like when we were talking to him after his February press conference for signing day. It was like, you know, we've got linemen walking around here that were walk-ons that like I would have killed to have at other places. And to me, like that's a little bit of like hyperbole coach speak, but it's also him saying like maybe I can coach some of these guys up that are already here. So
The
maybe,
frame's there.
Yeah, maybe there'll be some guys that emerge, and if the coaching is better, which kind of has to be.
Right.
It has to be, right? A number of spots. Then you can end up being okay to go all the way back to the point that you were saying earlier about those close games. If you then have like a somewhat level better of coaching,
An adult.
Yeah.
and an adult running the program, you should be able to turn some of that into wins and then make a bowl game. Like, I don't think that's
Everybody makes a
unrealistic.
bowl game.
Everyone makes
Everybody makes a bowl game.
Yeah.
That's what
Well,
we
that's
beat that drum all the time.
That's not true.
Nebraska
doesn't.
does.
That's my point. That was the yelling match that we've gotten into multiple times on this
Nebraska
podcast.
needs to make the Farrell's Irish Red bowl game.
No, they didn't make the freaking Charmin Ultra Bowl. Like,
Charmin Ultra Soft Bowl.
yes.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Soft.
Everybody makes a bowl game except Nebraska.
Yeah.
Any Compton head coach, and I've said this, I want to use it again because shout out Andy Means. Literally, I said Andy Means could come into Nebraska right now and win more games than former head coach Scott because he actually would try. He's actually committed and he's going to bust his ass.
Now, to that point, because this is something else that I'm also really interested in, because you're talking about them, like Matt Rule saying all of the right things. One of the things that I think that he's said and done, because we've seen it in the level of work ethic that they've already put out, is that level of work to me, and I think this is a huge X factor, and we're never going to be able to measure it. You're going to see, I think, the team work harder because they know that their coaching staff works really hard.
Terrence Knighton, didn't he say something about that?
He did.
Yeah.
And that to me, I think that things like that, when we talk about trying to build a winning culture and guys that haven't seen winning and all of that, when you just see, like, you can't, it's going to be impossible for you as a player on this team right now to go slack off knowing that 3 days after the signing day, Matt Rule and a bunch of other staff were down in Texas speaking at a coaching clinic in Texas, right? Like, it's just going to be really hard to do that, to then look your like teammates and your coaches in the face and do that type of stuff and slack off. So I think that will have an effect too.
Yeah.
And again, you can't measure it, but what type of effect will that have down the road of just saying everyone's going to try? It sounds so dumb to have to say that out loud.
Right.
But it is the reality of the situation that we're in.
After 4.25 years of not seeing that, it feels really good to say, this is going to happen happen now.
I don't know.
Really good.
Like the players played hard for him.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
My statement was a little unfair. The players themselves were not the issue.
They're only going to do what they're led to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, my statement was a little unfair.
And if you remember JoJo Doman standing up there and going, look, we're doing everything the coaches are telling us. He said it like word for word.
Yeah.
We're doing everything the coaches are telling us and we're still losing. Like
that was his blink twice if you're in danger moment. You know what I'm saying? JoJo.
No.
Blink.
Hey,
you're in danger.
He scored a tutty this year.
They've got Herbie at knife point behind the camera.
Hey, he's still losing games in Indy, but he scored a tutty this year. So
hey, we won 4.
But going back to your point about the scholarship numbers, it's a lot.
Astronomical numbers.
You need a lot of people to leave, right? Hey, there's the door. We're not going to tell you to leave, but you need to leave. And you had guys at workouts. There were some reports apparently players were scared. Like they were being watched by the staff. Like, oh shit! Like I actually got to. And again, I'm not trying to say the players didn't work hard before, but there was reports that players were, oh shit, something's at stake now. Like I can't be fucking around. This is a whole new staff, clean slate. They don't know what I did before. Even the good things that I did do, I was on a team that didn't do anything. So this is a clean slate. And so, oh shit, this is a new staff. I got to be on my P's and Q's and cross my I's and dot my T's. And yes, I said it wrong.
I kind of like that watchful eye, though. It goes back to, Bo and staff of the stories that Bo would just randomly show up to classes to make sure his players were there.
Oh, yeah. They appreciate that now. I'm sure you're going to talk to some of those guys from there.
We've talked to a lot of guys like that.
They appreciate that now. They all say to him, man, I've talked to Tommy Armstrong about this specifically, where he says, we hated that then. But now I kind of understand what he was actually trying to get at and trying to instill in us.
Yeah, it's a work ethic.
Yeah.
You commit yourself to your school as much as you do the sport.
We've had a lot of Bo guys on, and every guy we have is a Bo story. Who's got a Bo story? Everybody's got a Bo story.
Well, what's insane is however many Bo guys we've talked to, I don't know that any of them have had a negative outlook on Bo. As
No, not a one.
And seriously, every single guy we've had on the podcast would take a bullet for Bo Pelini. I'm not it is not like I was very upset when Bo got fired, but it was more it even made me think about it too. Wow, we really fucked up.
Yeah,
because you get sold just like the Matt Rule thing right now. It's you get sold on a new coach, and it's okay, I can talk myself into Mike Riley. He was close at Oregon State, didn't have the facilities, didn't have all that stuff, right? Didn't have the resources. So you talk yourself into it. I'm hoping that's not the case with Matt Rule because he's a salesman.
But the one thing I will say on Riley, and I did not want to get run off of this podcast by defending Mike Riley, but I will say
we're not worried about.
No, you don't need to defend him. I don't give a shit.
Listen, we don't bleep his name out.
Okay, that's a fair point.
He tried anyway.
He also he didn't get a fair shake.
No.
He didn't have the support that the previous regime enjoyed, right? And to the utmost, right? He just didn't have that for even producing better results than the most recent previous regime, right? So I think it's always important to me to point that out, that he just didn't have that support. But I understand why people were so angry with how things went. But it also is so tied to how excited they were for the previous regime to come in. They piled on to Mike Riley probably a little too much.
Way too much.
So it's just interesting.
But what's wild to me is people still look back on Mike Riley and they see that tenure as maybe not necessarily a failure, but not a success. And I always point out the 2016 season where we start 7-0, we're ranked, I believe, number 7 in the nation. I mean, that's the highest Nebraska has been ranked in a decade.
Well, not to mention we made that poll, and we talked about this a couple weeks ago, but I made that poll on Twitter, and it had tons of votes. It was that 3,000, 4,000 votes, whatever it was. Who do you blame for the current situation at Nebraska right now?
I saw that poll.
Yes, you probably saw it. Yeah,
you probably voted in it,
right? Yeah. Thankfully, I think Husker fans have learned now, but there were still people voting again for Mike Riley, which is just wild to me.
Saying that he was the issue.
Yeah, he's the issue. You're going to blame the current situation on him, then it's just wild to me how people can still just bend over backwards and defend the golden boy himself.
Well, and so I think the reason that former head coach Scott got so much support was we've talked about the dichotomy of separating him as a player and as a coach.
Yeah.
Like that, obviously, you have to separate those two things. I think the reason he got so much support was because of his tenure as a player here and the fact that he did win a national championship right before he came to Nebraska. Yeah, I'm joking.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was like, where was that?
Will you stop?
No,
crazy.
I will never stop shitting on Scott as a coach.
All right. Let's go back to recruiting because we really don't get guests that are so like in the trenches when it comes to recruiting like yourself.
Trenches. I love that word, trenches.
In the trenches.
It's the word of the day.
We talked about the 2023 signees that were out of high school, but I want to talk a little bit about the transfer portal. Okay. This is a new element. It's probably a new element for your job too. Yeah. Like trying to talk to guys that, put their name in the portal and all that stuff. Can you talk a little bit about that and your day-to-day trying to communicate with guys that are in the portal and all that stuff?
It is wow, it's hard to explain. It's definitely a new element, right?
Yeah.
And it is the wild, wild west of trying to figure stuff out. But it is so different than trying to talk to high school kids, right? So even it gets more difficult. The more a high profile a high school recruit is, the harder it is to talk to them unless you started that relationship early. Mm-hmm. But in the case of transfer portal guys, they've already been through all of that.
Right.
They're at a school. They don't want to talk. And on the other side of that, the schools themselves don't really want to talk about who they're recruiting out of the transfer portal. So it's hard to get information on that either way. Like it's a really difficult animal. And schools and I can really only talk about Nebraska. Nebraska is very good at kind of keeping that off of the radar and just guys popping up. And then all of a sudden you see that that's who they're interested in. And really sometimes the first time that I find out that Nebraska is interested in a kid in the portal for sure is when they're on campus for an official visit. Like sometimes I'll get like a little hint like, hey, they offered this kid, but a lot of those offers will go out and then those guys never pop up on campus. It happens all the time, especially when you're in a transition like Nebraska just was. There were plenty of guys that fall into that. So it is a lot more difficult to navigate. So anytime like anyone gets an interview or some real information about a transfer portal kid, know that they did something very right. Yeah. To be able to get that information because it is hard to get.
Speaking of transfers, who is going to be the Trey Palmer of 24?
So,
and is it going to be Eric?
So the guy that comes in and plays a lot?
Yeah. That makes a
impact?
I would say impact player. Are you saying specifically offense?
No, either way.
The
either
impact
side of the ball.
Player out of the portal.
Impact player out of the portal, don't care what position or side of the ball, don't care.
So I'm going to take Ben Scott off of the board because we all assume that Ben Scott is going to be the starting center. MJ Sherman is a guy that I really like out of this group. I think that he can either play inside linebacker or play on that edge. Some of that is going to depend on the development of some other guys, right? So if Jamari Butler, Blaze Gunnerson come out and they've had a great winter and they do a really nice job, then I think you could see them maybe play a little bit more and allow MJ Sherman to then be kind of in that inside linebacker role, especially because your top two inside linebackers are hurt often. So you just don't know what's going to happen there. Like, and I like those guys a lot.
I know.
It's not a knock on them. It's just the reality of the situation. But what would help them, though, honestly, is if the defensive line was really
right?
good. Yeah, that too. But if the defensive line keeps them clean, notice a couple of years ago when they both basically had 100 tackles, the defensive line played better. It allowed them to stay cleaner. They didn't take as many guards barreling down on them, and then they were able to stay healthy, right? So it kind of goes hand in hand. But I really like MJ Sherman. My wild card, though, I'll give you a wild card.
Okay.
If Eric Gilbert can like be on the field, like he's obviously got Sunday potential. And that would change the offense dramatically. To have a tight end like that, if he played up to his full potential, that would be a really big deal.
My question about Eric Gilbert is, we heard Satterfield talking about, we want to use the tight ends. We want to use the tight ends. We want to use fullbacks, all this other stuff. So that would lead one to believe that we're going to be using the tight ends for blocking, and then, go out and do some interesting stuff with them. Is Eric Gilbert the kind of guy that came to Nebraska under the assumption that he was going to be like a star, like a just a pass catcher and not so much in the dirty grind of blocking every play?
That's a good question. I would say yes and no. I think every tight end dreams of catching a bunch of touchdown passes.
Right.
Like no tight end wants to just block.
Yeah. Everyone wants to be a Travis Kelce.
Yeah, everybody wants to be that. But if you look at some of his clips from previous stops, like he was a willing blocker. Like he definitely mixed it up and kind of in the mud there and block guys. So no, I think he's capable of doing both. But all tight ends want to like Thomas Fedoni wants to be out there catching passes. Like he's not
just want to be on the field.
Well, that too, but he's not like dreaming at night about like pancaking a guy. He's dreaming about catching a game-winning touchdown. So.
Right. I think Travis Kelce dreams about pancaking guys, though. I'm not gonna lie.
Maybe.
I still want him to line up a nose tackle in the Super Bowl, but that's a different story.
The Kelce Bowl.
Kelsey Bowl.
Look, you're a recruiting guy, senior recruiting guy.
Yeah, get it right.
Forgive me, Greg.
Yeah, it's fine.
Check yourself.
We would be remiss to not mention Colorado and Deion Sanders.
Oh boy, Coach Fry.
You're a Nebraska-centric guy. They had a nice finish to this past class. I mean, they finished in the top 30, considering where they were with one win in the regular season. They bring in Deion, finish top 30. Just looking at this class, looking at the future classes, what do you see in terms of the types of – they're going to get dudes.
They are.
So I guess the question is, like, we were talking about all bus team with Nebraska, right? Might it be the same thing with Colorado where they get dudes that look good on a bus, but hopefully, and this is hopefully, their coaches aren't very good.
Right.
And like they are undercoached, or their game philosophy and their game preparation isn't up to par. Like that's what we're.
Or there's culture
for.
issues, right?
Maybe, yeah.
That's what we're hoping for. But they're gonna get dudes.
Louis culture.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is this what we're seeing out of Colorado? Is this Hard Knocks, but for the NCAA?
Maybe.
Right.
I'm sure
Honestly.
Deion would do it.
Oh yeah.
Oh yes.
Here's the thing about that. They are going to get dudes.
Yeah.
And they're going to get skill position dudes. They got the number one corner, flipped him. They'll continue to get guys, especially at the skill positions. Whether or not they actually get guys, the trenches is the thing in this podcast.
That's what I meant by philosophy
or not,
too.
yeah. Look out if they get those types of guys, but even at the same time, it takes time for that to develop. Like even if you get the top 4 offensive and defensive linemen in the recruiting cycle, it's still going to take you time, right? So whether or not they can do that and develop the trenches is going to be a huge thing because they are going to get skill position guys. But in the meantime, what I'm really curious to see like them play Utah.
Right.
Yes. Like what happens when
that
happens? Yeah, what happens when that happens? Or like even what Oregon is building up there, like even though they lost their offensive line coach today, the Patriots, like that's going to still be a physical program under Dan Lanning. Like when they play teams like that, how are they going to do? Plus, they won one game last year. They got to rebuild the whole thing. That's going to take time for them to, as good as some of the freshmen that they had come in, and they had a good portal class as well. Like it's just, there's only so many guys you can bring in to then flip over a 1-win team. Like that's just it's going to be hard to do.
Right.
What I'm going to find the most interesting is as we see, I wouldn't call it quite a flood of Louis going to Colorado, but seeing that like a lot of these really good players going to Colorado, like I'm not going to discredit the recruits they brought in, but if they don't see like at least a decent flip, do we see the reverse coming out of Colorado next year saying, this isn't what I was sold on. This isn't a program where I see myself succeeding, and I'm going to go somewhere where I think we're going to get more wins.
Texas A&M situation,
right?
Yeah, this past year with their NIL deal.
What, they have like 28 guys in the portal.
Crazy.
I think, it was like an insane amount. I think it was like 28.
We got one of them.
Yeah, they got one of them. But I also wonder too, like it's still like, and this is why it's wild because on one hand, that's a real question. The other side of that is true as well. Like if they pop quickly and play well, is he staying there?
No.
Like that's the other thing. Or is he, was like the first decent SEC job that comes open? Is he going to go and take that? Like there's a lot there. Like I just don't, like I can't see Deion Sanders being at Colorado for more than like 5 years.
No
to
way.
The good or the bad. Like
Yes.
it doesn't, it's not just that it would go bad. It's even if it goes well.
I think if Deion succeeds really early on, he will go immediately to a school that can actually pay him.
Well, yeah. I mean, he hasn't got paid yet, right?
That too.
Yeah.
That too.
Yeah, now that Mike Norvell seems to be doing something at Florida State, seems like it.
He's a good coach. Give him.
I'm just
time.
saying. I'm just saying. It seems
Give
like
him 4.25 years.
Yeah.
that would be like the logical Deion. You go to Florida, you got that fertile recruiting base right away. You don't have to fly dudes to cold mountains in Colorado.
I don't know.
Even
they
though
said,
they look
they
cool.
said on Twitter, though, that it's not as cold as they thought.
That's
I saw
right.
his son say that.
That's what everybody says about these places in the Midwest,
when they
right?
get there. They always say, it's not as cold as I thought. Yeah, right.
They're out in their short sleeves.
Sure.
And you can see the breath, and they're like, okay, can we end this photo shoot now?
Right. Yeah.
I know, like, we went from transfers, and we talked about the players that we would want from the past on the current team. Let's talk about, let's say they don't get Dylan Raiola.
Okay.
There's a quarterback that Nebraska might target, Daniel Kalen out of Bellevue West.
Oh, yeah.
How's his recruitment going? Like, who are some of the teams that are targeting him? What's Nebraska looking like on that end?
Yeah.
Just get into him.
So that's funny. I'm smiling because the team that he most recently visited was Colorado.
Oh, great.
I'm
Good
kind
timing.
of there. They had like an elite junior day where they had a lot of really, really good 2024 prospects and Kalen on campus, and Kalen was one of them. And he came away with a favorable impression of them. I think Nebraska is in the mix with him, but it's kind of a weird situation. I can't lie. Like, it is tough. If you think about it from Daniel's point of view, everyone in the world knows that Dylan Raiola is their number one target. Like, Nebraska has told him that. Like, I and everyone else have reported that. Like, it's out there. It's a thing. And so it's really up to Kalen on whether or not he wants to wait to see what happens with that, or if he wants to jump on one of the other offers, and he has plenty to choose from. So he's got Colorado. Miami was a recent one. North Carolina is one. He's been talking to Minnesota. Like, there's a host of other schools that are interested in Danny Kalen. And so it'll be curious. I think he does like Nebraska, and I think that he got along with, in the conversation with Rule and Satterfield, he's told me that he really liked those guys, right? It's just whether or not he wants to wait to see what happens with Dylan's. And Danny, I think, wants to make a decision either sometime this spring or summer, probably this spring. We'll see if that kind of lines up with what Dylan wants to end up doing as well. And so it's just kind of a wait and see, because I also wonder your mindset as a highly recruited kid yourself. Are you salty? That
right.
But at the same time, it's the number one player in the country. But I know that if I was him, I wouldn't necessarily be thinking that either.
Right.
Like, I wouldn't.
I'm better than
he
him.
was the number one. Yeah. Like,
yes.
I can do this too. Like, I can help bring Nebraska football back too. Why don't you guys go all in on me? So I don't know. That it'll be tricky. It's tricky for Matt Rule in Nebraska to kind of navigate those waters. But they are recruiting him, which is better than Scott, because they really weren't.
Yeah.
Weird. Local guy, they're not recruiting?
Local quarterback.
Weird.
It is just such a sticky situation that we're in.
It really is. It's a tough one.
Because you see, okay, Dylan Raiola sees that Ohio State picks up a 23 quarterback, and he's like, you know what, I'm out. So then Matt Rule's looking at that going, oh, they screwed up big time. So now they're going all in on him. So now they're not going for 24 quarterbacks because they're trying to get Dylan. It is.
Yeah. And they haven't even, listen, it's not even just that they're not pushing hard on Kalen. Like, they haven't really offered another, like, 24 guy. They had a 25 kid, Stone Saunders, that was on campus. He's really, really good for that class. But, like, they have not even gone there yet, which is, again, another signal to Dylan that, hey, we're for real about this. We want to wait to see what you do before we do anything. But it puts everyone else on hold. But I think that definitely before the season, I think we'll have clarity on all of that.
Where you're at right now in your mind, obviously, like, Raiola still, I would say, a little bit of a long shot.
Okay.
Do you think that Nebraska is putting itself at more risk by going all in on Raiola and not going after some of these other QBs and kind of leaving them in the ether because all of our focus is diverted over there? Do you think that might be harming the program?
It's a gamble.
It is. Yeah,
it's a gamble, but you have to do it for Dylan. Like, for that kid, you have to. It's not a.
It's like you've got pocket aces. You've got to double down.
It's not a situation where even if, like, he was like just a, like, solid 4-star, like, we're talking about the guy, right? Like, so because of that, I think that it makes a lot more sense to do it. But it is still a gamble. But you can always then circle back to other guys as well. And you can bet that if, like, let's say it's not happening, but tomorrow Dylan Raiola commits to USC, Matt Rule's first call is then going to be to Danny Kalen and then see. And I also would imagine that based on what we've seen from Rule and this staff, they've evaluated film on other quarterbacks.
Oh, yeah.
They just haven't put those offers out. So they have a plan as to if Dylan comes off the board and we need to look at other quarterbacks, here's 3 guys that we're going to offer right away and try to get them on campus. So I don't think it's harming them at all.
Do you think they still go the high school route, though, or do you think it's just going to be a portal thing?
Another transfer
Yeah, another transfer guy. I mean, you brought in Jeff Sims, who's he can play, 2?
Yeah, he's got multiple years
2 or
left,
3 years,
yeah.
and then you got Casey, who has this year, and
I still think they would need. I think they need a high school quarterback in 24 because they need their guy that they can start to develop.
Yeah.
And they've got the other guys that are on the roster that never really come up, like Harburg, Smothers, those guys, Richard Torres.
Yes.
The guys that
Yeah,
never
they're
come
big
up.
on him.
Like, yeah, they have a lot of guys that have multiple years of eligibility, so they just got to figure all that out.
Yeah.
So maybe this can be the last question of the night.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm logged in as Greg Smith and Rivals.
Okay.
Yeah, I
He
know your
logged in
password.
as you,
Uh-oh.
yeah.
Oh,
So I'm on my.
You got a lot of power.
I'm on the future. I'm on the future cast.
You're a senior now.
That's right. You're the junior now.
Uh-oh.
No,
I technically am a junior, so.
I'm making my future cast. Dylan Raiola.
Uh-oh.
Where's it going?
Where's Dylan Raiola going? Is it going to be an N? Is it going to be a Trojan? Is it going to be a G? What do you think? What am I putting?
It's tough. That is really tough because we have actually had this discussion.
We're
internally.
recording, right?
Yeah, about what I would have to hear or find out to then make me then say, okay, I think that Nebraska is going to be the pick. I like Nebraska's chances. I do.
Hit the end.
Okay, you're 18 of 22 before, so let's see.
And I could tell you about those other ones that I've missed. I get docked if I predict Dylan Raiola to commit to Nebraska, and he does, I get the correct points for that. But if he then decommits later and goes somewhere else, I'm docked for that.
That's bold.
And there's 2 of them on that list. I should be 20 for 22. I'm very angry about this. On that
Is that
list.
What is that? 90?
It's Dylan Edwards and someone else that I actually had correct. Duda, the running back.
He's got a Keisei Tominaga free throw percentage.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
Of the 2 that you actually missed, not including, decommitting and going somewhere else, which one was the bigger miss?
The bigger miss. I'm trying to think of who the other one, because one of them was Andrew Metzger, the tight end, that went to Kansas State. I feel like he was the better player of the 2. I can't remember who the other guy was. I done blocked it out.
So Metzger's the bigger miss.
Yeah.
You can't remember the other guy's name.
Yeah.
We can answer that one pretty easily.
Yeah.
Hold on, I'm just scrolling.
Are you scrolling?
Oh, Arnold Barnes?
No, that was one that he no, maybe it was.
Ashley.
Yeah. Yes, it was
Ashley
Williams.
Williams.
No, so sorry. I take that back.
Ashley
Revert.
Williams.
It was Ashley Williams.
He kind of flipped a
Yeah.
lot.
And he did flip that.
Hey.
That one, he did flip that one too.
Ashley.
Yeah.
He did it
Third
just to
time or whatever.
He did it just to screw you over.
That's kind of fucked up though. That you they committed. Like
They did.
And yeah.
Yeah,
And you were
well,
right.
that one, that's what I say.
Yeah. Do you have to come back and then after they come in, you're like, okay, I'm gonna give this a coin toss and say he might leave? Like that's
wrong.
That's wrong.
Not fair.
It's not.
That's wrong.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
let's do what we usually do with our guests. Greg, tell the listeners where they can find you, all that stuff. And then I want you to talk about the hashtag always bring mom on the official visit. I want you to finish with that because this is unique.
Okay, cool. So you can find me on Twitter at Greg Smith Rivals. That's where I generally am. You can also find me at our site, nebraska.rivals.com. Greg Smith Rivals also on Instagram. I post sporadically there.
Yeah.
But Twitter is definitely the spot that you can find me most often. I'm a prolific tweeter, as the people would say. Always hashtag always bring mom on the OV. The funny thing about that, I have had moms actually reach out and talk about that. The most recent one was actually someone who didn't come here, a Johnny Cornelius, who ended up the big time transfer that went to Oregon. His mom said that she liked that hashtag. And the reason that is in there is if you ever see a kid come on an official visit to Nebraska and they do not bring their mom, provided that, mom is with us, right? They're not going to commit here.
They're just coming for the experience.
Yeah.
They're coming for that free visit.
You have to have mom on board to be able to pick that school. It's never going to happen unless you have mom on board. So I say, always bring mom on the OV. So I always ask kids when I do like the pre-visit interview, like I always say, hey, who's coming with you on the visit for that very reason?
It's a loaded question. You're looking for one thing.
Yeah, they don't know that, but they will if they listen to
Senior
this. But,
analyst. Learn from this man.
How often have you found that to be accurate? Like-
that they have not. That if mom doesn't come, that
Yeah.
they. Oh, it's pretty accurate.
Have you seen his percentage? I mean, it's not bad.
So it goes like this.
He's 18 for 22.
Who are you bringing on your official visit? And he goes, oh, it's just me. He goes, okay, bye.
Seriously. Yeah. That's awesome.
I'm not writing
Like,
a story
you
on
sure
you.
you don't want to bring mom?
Your mom's gonna love it.
But parents, they just love Nebraska. Moms really do love Nebraska. So.
They're so nice.
Yeah.
Well, before the previous coach, he was a good looking fella. I mean, I'm sure the mom really liked that. And now, I mean, Matt Rule, he's like a teddy bear. Like they probably really like that feeling too.
Family guy. Trustworthy vibe.
Yeah.
Family guy.
He's got that 5 o'clock shadow going for him.
Yeah.
Looks good.
Like, oh, he brought his wife out here, which did happen. Like, when they started having like junior days, that very first one, if you remember, where it was all Nebraska kids, like Julie Rule, like they like recruits were like name dropping. Like, we met Julie. Who is Julie?
On a first name basis.
Yeah, it was Julie
Love
Rule.
that.
Like, she apparently hung out a lot with people and like went from table to table. So
That is awesome.
Big recruiting tool.
yeah.
Yeah, I heard that she did that while Matt was coaching with Carolina. She would host like players at the house, and have get-togethers and stuff. Yeah, she's about it.
That's right.
Bring
Football wife. You have to be in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, he could be sitting at home making about the same amount of money. So you really got to be about it if
no
you're going to let
shit.
your
She had to
husband.
sign off on that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
That had to be a family vote. I would love to like do a like mini 30 for 30 on that. Like,
Yeah.
Dad, we could just sit here on this beach you did the game day thing from, or we could,
go move to Nebraska.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Hey, it's a lovely state.
Negative 30 wind chill and such. Okay. You guys know where to find us if you're watching us. Probably we're not going live on Twitter anymore, are we?
We are sometimes.
So
Occasionally.
on Twitter at NBNR Podcast, Instagram NBNR Podcast, TikTok NBNR Podcast,
Weird.
Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We are there. Give us a 5-star review, please. We are begging you. We need it. If you don't, then fuck you. TikTok, talking to you too. Go on Spotify and Apple. Give us a review. It helps us. I don't know how, but the algorithm, it does things.
It makes us look nice.
Yes.
At the very least.
I think we're at 4.9
Yes.
on Spotify with like 55, I think.
Yeah.
It's a pretty good run.
It's not bad.
There was
Pretty
one salty motherfucker that went on there and gave us a 1-star review. Fuck him.
Fuck 'em.
Or her. I don't know. Or them.
Fuck
whatever
them
they
is
go
gender
by.
neutral.
Whatever they go by. Am I missing anything? Am I missing merch? Do we got
No,
merch?
we
coming,
don't have
Mike?
fucking merch.
Do we have fucking tote bags?
Can we can announce the award show now, right?
Yes.
Kyle Listen, this
This
is
is the KB
this
special.
is Kyle Byers'
You talk
baby.
about it.
He cradles this shit. He's the point of contact. Kyle Byers. Talk
Yes.
about it.
So August 19th, here at the Tap Room, we are hosting a Nebraska Podcast Award Show. All your biggest podcasts that you guys listen to, the Go Big Red podcasts, like the Redcast, my bad. The Go Big Redcast, everybody, a lot of people that are associated to Herd at Sports, just like we are. Everybody's going to be there. The fans, the family, the friends, they're all welcome. We're going to be out here and we're going to be doing the award show.
Well, and it just got expanded too to include radio shows, correct?
Yeah, radio shows. You can do your blog, everything like that. So
Yeah.
if you're looking to be involved in that at all, you can go to nbnrpodcast.com. There's a registration page there. We'll have that stuff out at the end of February. So
If you want to win a cool award, sign up. If you want to drink some beer, sign up. If you just want to just get out on a Saturday,
we're bringing the podcast community together for the first time ever.
Yeah.
The whole community.
Who else has done this?
No one.
No one.
This is the first one.
Kyle,
first time.
I don't know if you mentioned fans, family, whatever. It's free to show up.
Yeah,
it's all
it's
free.
free.
It's free to show up and hang
unless
out.
you have a podcast, you pay us, motherfucker. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, unless you have a podcast, then it's $25 just to help us out with a little bit of the cost.
The cost of the
But
trophy.
guess what? There's 5 of you motherfuckers on a podcast. Split it up. Pay the damn fee.
Yep.
You're welcome.
Yep. So that's happening in August. So get on that.
Yes, I'm yelling at you, but we are likable people. I swear. Meet us in person. It's different. All right, guys. Let's sign off. I am one of your hosts, Jared Hall,
Mike Delaware,
Kyle Byers,
Connor Cavalack,
Oh, I'm Greg Smith.
the senior analyst.
senior analyst.
As always, beat Michigan tomorrow. Just win, baby, and GBR.